Peace and love, family. How is everyone tonight? Thank you for joining us on another edition of the RAM Book Club, Resurgence of the African Mind, where we seek to liberate one African mind at a time by reading one unit at a time. Of course, you know, family, we are reading The Blueprint for Black Power by Amos Wilson. We have been getting it in now. What are we on now? Since we on halfway into week 9, right? So yes, we are committed. As you see, we're going to be committed. We're going to finish it, and we're going to continue on as long as possible. If you have anyone that you know that's interested, join us, family. Give them the link, share the link with your family and friends. My name is Lili La Poete or Alima Njai. You can check me out at lililapoetespeaks.com. Every week, we will post the links there for the RAM Book Club. We will post the link if you want to join the panel, okay?
That's why you
or if you want to just tune in and listen in the chat room, you can do that as well. You have your option. Sister Maat is pulling that up for us right now. You can also head over to the marketplace over there, and you can get your copy of Perceptions of the Misplaced African Volume 1, or you can get some things from Meltrack and some other things. Yeah, there we are there. So Dr. Maat is pulling it up now. We have an outline for you, family. If you can't watch the videos, you don't have time, you can get a brief outline every week of every chapter. So like I said, once again, you can go to lililapoetespeaks.com and you can get that information. We're going to allow the panel to introduce themselves.
All right. I'm sorry, sis. I'm like right behind. I'm trailing behind you. I wanted to.
No, you're good. You're good, sis.
I wanted to show them the beautiful marketplace that you spoke about. So we have.
Yeah. And speaking of, family, if you want to sell your products with us, you know, I don't want no cut of your money or nothing like that. I just need your PayPal information. So you can, you know, get your payments, but we'll be more than happy to sell your products there with us if you're interested. So let me know, family.
That's hot. Look at this. This is beautiful. And you have Perceptions of a Misplaced African Volume 2. That's coming out soon, right? I know that
sometime next year it will be out. And that one is going to be entitled Reflections, but it's still in the same series. Yes, Reflections of a Misplaced African.
Excellent, excellent. So let me stop sharing. All right, peace and power, family. My name is Dr. I see you got the Meltrek in the building, Brother Knowledge Born. So peace and power, family. My name is Dr. Maat, also known as Dr. Deanna Bailey. I am the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions and the executive producer of our animated series Meltrek, which explores and teaches children African history from an African perspective. I'm also an adjunct professor at the School of Engineering at Morgan State University. I teach digital communications and wireless communications there. Next semester, I'll be teaching signal processing there. And right now, working on starting a Saturday Academy here in Baltimore called Higher Minds Academy. So I'll go ahead and pass the mic and let some of the other brothers on the panel introduce themselves. Brother Knowledge Born, Brother T, Brother Travis.
Every time.
Hey, how you doing, family? This is Johnson too. Speaking just once again coming to join the panel here in Baltimore. Well, I wish I had me a book that I wrote. All these well-written scholars on this panel. I'm just glad to be a part of it. But just every Saturday at Drew Hill. I'm sorry, not Drew Hill Park. Every Saturday at St. Louis Drive. We also, like I said, we're also reading Mr. Neely Fuller book and putting together a community organization that can kind of help get the community involved in some things, as I mentioned last week. So that's one of the things I'm trying to focus on as we speak. And then also being a member of the Black Professional Men here in Baltimore. I'm a head of the Economic Development Department, and which I partner with some companies here in Baltimore to get people employed in the city. So just trying to do one step at a time and put some of this good information to work.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's about. It's about, you know, we're not just reading to read, we're reading to learn, to understand, and to implement. So, you know, I definitely appreciate, you know, the work that you're doing, brother, right here in Baltimore City. Brother, now what's going?
Hey, Black Power, Black Love to the family. It's now Born Allah, host and founder of Through the Knowledge Radio. And definitely here, honored to be a part of this resurgence of the African mind. Every time I say it, like I love it in my spirit. Resurgence of the African mind. Book
Well, those
club.
were your words, brother. You know, so I kind of snatched your words and say, oh, that's what I want to call it.
Reading, digesting, dissecting, synthesizing this great work by ancient honorable ancestor, a true African warrior.
Yeah,
Dr. Amos Wilson. We're here. And some of the things that we're doing over on Do Knowledge Radio, we are beginning. We have another book series that we're reading right here from our brother, Remembering Osir, my brother Uncle New, Chief Priest of the Ninsu Tribe. Every Wednesday on Do the Knowledge Radio YouTube channel, we're going through this magnificent text, decoding it, dissecting it. And, one of the pluses that we have is we have the author, so we don't have to, infer on, his intentions in writing the book. This is 666 pages, of an instruction manual in regards to, reclaiming our African identity as we deal with the resurgence of that African mind. So every Wednesday we're on 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're on for 2 hours, and, we're approaching the text. So, it's not too late to get the book. You can get the book at www.hininsu.com. And we're on there, and we're on 7 days a week. This is my first show of the day. I got 2 more shows today. I will be on with Doggy Diamonds tonight, 9 p.m. Central to 10:30 on FM radio 90.1, www.kpft.org. And also we'll be on with Arkansas RBG's mental sequence, discussing the Pilgrims Massacre 1 week after the Black Power Awards today on Do Knowledge Radio. So I'm excited to be a part of the book club and my family on here. All them scholars, like my brother said, you know what I'm saying? Being the midst of these scholars,
I'm striving to be. I'm striving to be.
I'm trying to get there. I only got 1 book. I need a lot more to go.
Right. That's how I feel, sis. I need a lot more under my belt. So
right, and not just poetry books too. So,
Brother Travis,
he been quiet.
Yes, I had the mic muted, and normally he comes in. Brother Travis coming. Yes. Brother Travis, are you there, brother? Or did you? He's probably away.
He probably stepped away.
Oh, there's Brother Impu Haru. Introduce yourself to the panel, brother.
Peace, brother.
Hey, peace and life, family. As above, so below, as without, so within. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be with you all.
Indeed,
always. Yes, always a privilege to have you, brother. All right, Brother Travis, going once, going twice. Are you there? All right, so I guess he'll catch up with us later. So, sis.
Yes. What we getting into today? Today we got foundations as vehicles of social engineering, education for servitude. We're going to be talking about foundations and think tanks pursuant to the selling of Newt Gingrich and the Republican Party from '94. Foundations of influence on African American communities. And we're also going to talk about, on the Black hand side, Black Power Networks, institutions of higher learning.
Excellent. So I just want to remind the viewers that back in chapter 8, yes. So in chapter 8, Dr. Amos Wilson discussed the process by which the ruling class are able to dominate the United States, right, at all levels. And yes. He said that they follow 4 processes, and this is located on page 154. There are 4 processes that the ruling class follow in order to dominate the United States. And they are as follows: the special interest process, the policy formation process, the candidate selection process, and the ideology process. And in chapter 9, Dr. Amos Wilson describes the policy formation process. And he defines it as the means by which general policies of interest to the ruling class as a whole are developed and implemented. So last week, we started off with discussing how policies get implemented. Where does it start? And we realized, or we read that a lot of the ideas start in executive suites and on vacations amongst the ruling class. And so they brainstorm some ideas, and then they put some money behind these ideas for folks to go out and do the research. And they form think tanks and foundation in order to research their ideas. And then the ideas, I guess once they have a solid idea, or they have a lot of research behind the idea, then it goes into, it becomes a policy later on. And they have these policy planning groups. He discussed that. He also discussed the think tanks. The think tanks and the roles as the role and function of the selected influential policy planning group. And then he talked about think tanks. And where are we, sis? He listed,
yeah, he gave us the list of think tanks.
Yeah, leading this think tanks on page 180 to about page 182. And then he left off with discussing foundations.
Yes.
So, yeah. So what I've learned, Sister Alima, is that we think that, you know, a lot of the policies are created and implemented like from the president or the executive branch. But what I'm learning is that it's much more complex than that.
Yes.
It's much more complex. You have a lot of, you know, foundations and committees that are behind these policies. And one thing that stuck out to me last week during our discussion is, and I have it underlined, forgive me, Dr. Amos Wilson tells us on page 167, he said, rule creation is an enterprising act. And he said, behind every rule is an entrepreneur or interest group who, for one reason or another, sought to have the rule created, and by whose efforts legislation came into being in an effort to defend or advance his or its interests.
That's right.
Keep that in mind when certain policies are created, you know, and implemented. We have to keep in mind that it's an interest group or some entrepreneur behind the creation and implementation and the legislation that goes behind this this policy. So anyway, we're going to continue with page 185, and we're going to discuss the foundations as vehicles of social engineering. Do you want to go ahead, sis?
Go ahead, Queen.
I started it last week. Come on, sis.
Okay, all right, I'm going. Let's get it.
All
Okay,
right.
so foundations, we get to learn that foundations can be used of tools of social engineering, which of course makes sense if foundations are think tanks that are specifically geared and operated by special interest groups. Here I have, it says Siebold, 1987, thus the ruling elite in effect, through its foundations, mounts a cultural war against alternative and competitive ideologies by attempting to shape and delimit intellectual discourse in academia and in the larger society. Which is very true, because if they control your education, then quite naturally they're going to control how you are culturally, in a sense, because culture is embedded within education. It should be one and the same, but of course we know that it's not, but it is.
Yeah, but I agree with you with that, sis, that culture and education are one. I think that your education teaches you culture.
Correct.
Like you said, they're one and the same, culture and education. And
right.
But you're right, sis. And whoever controls the information controls the mind, right?
That's right.
All right. So he goes on to say that the it says foundation use their funding mechanisms. Funding mechanisms may seek to not only change the types of questions academia and the general populace may ask and the issues they may perceive as important, but also the methods by which these questions and issues are confronted.
Wow.
So these foundations control the information, and they control the information that are taught by the educational institutions. But not only do they control the information, they control the mechanisms or the methods by which people, I guess, dissect or interpret the information.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. So anyway,
that's a lot of power.
That is a lot of power. So that's completely a lot of power, but it makes total sense. So he says the very concept of technical reason is perhaps, so he's going into technology. All right. And what I have underlined right here is that technology is always a historical social project. In it, it is projected what a society and its ruling interests tend to do with men and things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying technology itself is domination. He said it's domination of nature in men. That's how he defined technology. Domination of nature in men. Methodical, scientific, calculating control. You know, specific purposes of interest of domination are not foisted upon technology subsequently and from the outside. They enter in the very construction of the technical apparatus. Technology is also, he says, always a historical social project, and it is projected what a society and its ruling interests tend to do with men and things. So that is technology, the domination of nature and men. And that makes sense, right, sis? Because when they produce technology, you're utilizing things in nature, right? You're utilizing sources in nature, right, in order to produce this technology. But you're using this technology for the purposes of controlling, right? Controlling people, to exploit people. So you're using, you know, you're dominating nature in men, all in a sense with technology. So then he goes on to discuss the Ford Foundation. And he's given this example of how the Ford Foundation transformed, he says, the focus and methodology of political science. So he was saying, so this is just an example that Dr. Amos Wilson provided to show us the power of foundations and how foundations shape academia and shape public opinion and discourse. Okay, so he used the Ford Foundation as an example, and he was saying that the Ford Foundation, he said that they transformed the focus and methodology of political science. So he says that prior to World War II, the field of political science had focused either on the formational operation of the government institutions, or on the moral and ethical issues of the government policies. But he said by 1960, its intention was riveted on voting patterns. So the lone scholar sitting in the library examining the details of the state constitution and philosophizing on the morality of legislative actions was replaced by a team of survey researchers sought to understand the electoral choices of American voters through the use of random samples and questionnaire surveys. So it went from studying, you know, government operations and moral and ethical issues within the government to studying the electoral choices of the American voters through random samples and questionnaire. So they actually altered the whole field, or even just they altered the focus of political science, just this foundation. And what did they do, Sister Alima? They put money behind it, right? So they wanted to change this. They wanted to change the study of political science to fit the needs of the ruling class, or to serve the interests of the ruling class, because the ruling class, they were interested in understanding voting patterns, right? And so the foundation came along, and the foundation said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to alter the study of the field of political science. And what did they do, Sister Alima? They put money behind it. They put money behind changing that. And then they put people in key positions at university, gave these professors grant money to start teaching political science differently. And then they started publishing books and journals and magazines on this new methodology. They called it behavioral political science. I believe he started talking about that on page 186. Political behavior approach.
Behavior revolution.
Absolutely. And so that's what they did in order to change an entire field, sis. You know, like they were studying one thing, and then the foundation came along and said, well, no, we're going to change that. And they put money behind it. They put people in key positions, right? And then they altered an entire field. All right. We don't got to read that verbatim. What else is? The
rise to prominence of the political behavior approach did not signal the victory of a particular perspective in the marketplace of ideas. Rather, it demonstrated the very significant influence that institutional support by major foundations, can have on the production of ideas in our society.
Yeah, that's deep. And
So they're saying that the ideas, it doesn't come from the marketplace. It's not coming from the people. It's coming per se from particular foundations.
Can I ask this question?
Yes.
Because that's a powerful revelation. Just knowing that. So what can we do in order to change the dynamics of politics, as I would say, pigment politics, would say black politics, so we can get things done policy-wise? Because everything I see here that the ancestor has wrote has been about big corporations, even down to their think tank. When I was doing research on think tanks, they pay a handsome fee for senior analysis, policymakers, government officials to be part of these policy teams to create whatever they choose to do. So how can we combat that as Africans?
Well, he talks, I know that Dr. Amos Wilson later on in the chapter talks about us forming our own intellectual agencies. He actually answered your question. Let me go.
Chapter 10, I know because I'm reading ahead that he definitely gets into it. There's a specific section that's called the need for a black political party. And I think that'll answer your questions a lot, brother. Then we can really talk about that, because that's definitely a good conversation that we need to have, because I feel that a lot of people, when they become conscious, they think that there's no need for us to be political. But in actuality, it's the total opposite. You know, we really need our own political party per se to try to combat or work our little feet in the door if they think they're going to make any type of changes here in America.
I think politics is, we have to create our own platform in that sense that affects our agenda. But if I was just reading a little bit, and it was saying that they were paying anywhere from $50,000 to $160,000 in 2012 for members of, and scholars and analysis earn anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 yearly, while senior analysis are typically paid $80,000 to $170,000. You know what I'm saying? Just to be part of these think tanks. So, and then after they, finish, they have these high-level positions in the institutions to teach and to indoctrinate the masses. It's crazy. It's amazing.
It is. It's very intricate.
Yes.
Where are we, Queen?
I'm up here. I was just screaming at folks in the chat room, but very, very, very interesting. We're at the bottom, because you had just read the middle of page 186. The only thing that I have highlighted on 186 is the bottom. It says the behavioralist revolution in the American political system. Political science in America. The American political science establishment was largely the product of the Ford Foundation's efforts to restructure political science to meet the needs of the economic elite. So this was a cool example, a great example on how powerful foundations are, and how foundations can be used to transform the focus, and method, not only of in academia, but even public perception, that these foundations have the power to sway or to shape and mold, public discourse and public opinion. So I thought that was very powerful. So we're on page 186. He provides us with a list as by what means did the Ford Foundation accomplish this behavioralist revolution. So he said there were a number of well thought out approaches designed to achieve its goals. And what I'm noticing, brothers and sisters on the panel, is that these white folks are very strategic. They study, they research, they brainstorm ideas, they study some more, they research, they publish materials, they utilize, a lot of work goes in, a lot of time, energy, and money goes into maintaining social order.
Yes, it does.
A lot of time, energy, and money. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I knew some things, but reading this book has really been an eye-opener for me. I had no idea how controlled we are, You know what I mean? Just down to even our thoughts. Like when you have a thought, how organic even is your thought?
Exactly.
Because your thought was probably molded, you know, it was shaped by someone or something. So how organic are we? You know, how organic is our personalities? You know, I think about stuff like that after just reading his book. But anyway, yes,
it's the same wave. I was thinking the same thing. Like how much of my thoughts really are my thoughts? I really was like, because
absolutely.
Yes, it's interesting.
Absolutely. A lot of time and money goes into maintaining social order. And in order to maintain social order, they had to control what people think. Correct. And what people are talking about. They had to control that. And what did? They dump money into the media, and they dump money into academia. You know, now they're trying to, never mind, I'm not even gonna get off on a you know, anyway. So there are a number of well thought out approaches designed to achieve its goals. So one, the Ford Foundation institutionalized the behavioral science division. So they created a division. That was one step. He said, and then this is the second step. They dumped money into this division. They invested over 23 million in individual scholars, graduate departments, research institutes, and professional associations who shared its special commitments. All right. So step one was to create or institutionalize a behavioral science division. Then they dumped money into scholars and research graduate departments, right? Who were committed to this endeavor. And then three,
they started producing the journals.
Absolutely, sis. I was just going to say, it says it also engaged in reorientation of professional journals and the utilization of intermediary organizations in the training of upcoming scholars in the methodology of behavior. All right. Then four, it says the foundation encouraged and supported the creation of a number of programs designed to develop behavioral political theory in different places. And they issued a variety of grants to research institutions. All right, hold up. I'm underlining. I'm highlighting as we go along. I have marks in my.
I got certain parts highlighted in each one.
Absolutely, me too. Sis. Me too, sis. Just going through, just summarizing what it, you know. What they did. Okay, so the fifth step, they started producing. They produced more literature. It says 15 landmark books in political science were published under the guise of this committee between 1952 and 1959. All right. And then the sixth step, it says, where are we, sis?
Yeah, they funded the Committee on Comparative Politics. They said this committee was designed to generate and update information and practical knowledge about underdeveloped and emerging nations whose policy and or systems of government are uncongenial or incompatible with the United States interests.
Wow. Okay, so this was, oh yeah, look, sis, and it says the body of information generated by this committee was also used for propagandistic purposes as well, to demonstrate the superiority of American capitalism, economic developmental approaches, and public policies. So what do they do, sis, from this information? So they go out and do some research on the underdeveloped systems, and then they said, okay, we're going to create some propaganda from this to make people say, yeah, you know, the American system,
we really need this. That's right. That's
so
right.
A lot of things go into shaping, again, public opinion, and even what goes on in academia. So I have that highlighted. So let's go into page 189, education for servitude. And this was one of my favorite subsections in this book. Yeah, because he got into, you know, he started talking about, you know, the function of education. I believe it's in this subsection, or maybe further along. But go ahead.
This one says.
Okay, so go ahead.
So we're talking about the prospect of Black education for social equality. It says up to 1938 and for quite some time thereafter, when the United States Supreme Court ordered the states to provide substantially equal facilities for Black and white state and land grant colleges, the vast majority of Black college students were enrolled in private institutions of higher learning. And these institutions were controlled by or identified with Black church organizations, white missionary, and industrial philanthropy. So I thought that was interesting, that the basis of the Black university started in the church. And that makes sense. that makes sense that, of course, religious people would find the need for that. Then I go on down and it says the mission societies made their most important contributions to Black higher education from the 1860s to 1915. By then, the mission societies had established over 30 colleges attended by the majority of Black and professional students. Many of these institutions were and remain the leading Black centers of higher learning. Which is very interesting. And of course, we always knew it was white money behind, you know, the start of the Black colleges, but he definitely gets into it more about how much money is behind them.
Absolutely. So then the next session discusses the triumph of Black industrial education. Mm-hmm. So we started off as missionary philanthropists. You had missionary philanthropists backing the universities or backing Black education, but then it went from missionary philanthropists to industrial
corporate philanthropy. Yes,
absolutely. Mm-hmm. So the industry, or they say industrial or corporate philanthropy, became a dominant force for shaping the quality, character, and mission of Black higher education. And so we have to ask ourselves, Sister Alima, if you have missionaries who come in and set up schools, and then then the missionaries go, because I believe the missionaries ran out of funding, right? I think Barbara Amos Wilson says that they
bankrupted them. They were bankrupt. So
they went bankrupt, and then it went from Black education was initially funded by missionary philanthropists. So them to industrial or corporate philanthropists. But you got to ask yourself, Sister Alima, are these people, now again, their whole objective is to maintain white power.
That's right.
So you think that they're going to fund a type of education to liberate us? Absolutely not. They're going to fund a type of education that's going to maintain our social status.
That's right.
Social order. And so they had to construct our education to serve them. And that's exactly what they've done. And that's why I am a huge proponent of African-centered education, because African-centered education is designed to serve African people. It's designed to uplift and to solve the problems of African people. And so anyway,
that's right.
It says by the turn of the century, mission philanthropy and the organizations such as the American, so he names all these organizations, right? Mm-hmm. It says missionary societies were virtually bankrupt, as you stated a few minutes ago, and their campaign to develop Black higher education sputtered out before getting in sight of their goal. The extension of equal education, civil and political rights to African Americans. The colleges they had supported were left without sufficient endowments to ensure their survival. So from the eve of the First World War onward, industrial philanthropy gained ascendance as the major force in Black higher education after having struggled with missionary philanthropy for that position since 1867. So we got to keep in mind, sis, the Emancipation Proclamation that was passed in 1965, right?
1865.
Yeah, 1865. I said 1965. 1865. So, so it's saying that, so then after that came the school. So it says they were fighting for this position, since 1867, all right, when the Peabody Educational Fund was established. So beginning about 1918, Black colleges became increasingly dependent on industrial philanthropies to fund faculty salaries, retirement benefits, scientific equipment, laboratories, substantial endowments, libraries, and other material resources necessary for colleges to be recognized as accredited institutions. And I want to add that they still are.
It's still the same way, yes.
Still the same way. So even though we're saying this stuff was happening in 1918, in 2017,
it's the same
Black
way.
Colleges and universities are still dependent upon the industrial philanthropy. All right.
So I thought what blew me away that in the next paragraph where he goes to talk about how the Southern Education Board and he said it in the General Education Board, all founded by the Rockefellers.
Rockefeller, wasn't it, sis? When I read that, it blew my mind. I'm like, wow.
I didn't know.
Me either. He had his hand, the Rockefeller family had their hands in a lot.
A lot.
From economics to politics to education, but it all makes sense because it all goes hand in hand. So it made perfect sense. Go ahead, Brother T. What were you going to add?
Unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Basically, I'm saying that they still do it today. The Rockefellers hold a lot of clout still in New York. If you follow the history, so it's just that they set their claim in history, and they've been starting it since the 1900s, as you see, as early as then, up until today. So you see the power of family, and now you also see brothers, the Koch brothers, doing the same thing. How they influence politics, policies, and what's going to pass, who's going to get what politicians are going to make it happen. So it's a lot of power in families and money.
Absolutely.
Facts.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm up here going. So it said that, okay, so in 1901, they established a Southern Education Board, and the General Education Board was established by John D. Rockefeller in 1902. But it says the former board was absorbed into the latter in 1914 under the title the General Education Board. All right. So there was a board that they put together to dictate and to control Black education. At the bottom of page 190, it says by 1921, Rockefeller had personally donated $29 million to the board. Moreover, the board became an interlocking directorate of Northern Industrial Philanthropy as its members directed disbursements of old and new foundations. All right? And it says that the General Education Board exercised virtually monopolistic control of educational philanthropy for the South and the Negro. All right, South and the Negro. The ascendance of industrial or corporate philanthropy in determining the character of Black education represented no mere change in the funding of Black education from missionary to industrial philanthropic hands, but more importantly, it represented a seismic change in the perception of the role Blacks were to play in Southern society and the nation of a whole. So we had outsiders, Sister Alima, mold and shape the character of Black education.
Yes, we did, because we couldn't afford to fund it.
Absolutely. So, the things that we learn in school, the things that we learn, I think that Black people, and that's why my cousin and I and a group of teachers are writing a book called, I don't even want to get into the book title, none of that. You know what I'm talking about, Sister Alima. But we're writing that book so that parents can understand the function of education. I think a lot of us do not get it. We think, our parents, and my mom was one of them, just, send your child to school, get a good education, get a good job. I think that was pretty much the idea or the ideology of a lot of Black families. Go to school and get an education.
That's right.
They never ask, what kind of education are we receiving? Like, what kind of education are you receiving? I think that we don't understand the function of education and the type of education that our children are getting when they go into these public schools. And that's why I think that it's important for us to publish this book, so that when parents read it, they say, okay, now I understand what education is supposed to be. And so then they can turn around, they can look and examine the type of education that their children are getting and be able to make a conscientious decision or a decision. Okay, well, maybe I need to pull my child. My child isn't getting this type of education that he or she should be getting. So let me pull them out of school and send them here. Once they understand what education really is and how it should benefit us.
I agree.
I think that people just don't know. So, we just send our children to school with everybody else, and don't really.
And look at Baba's last statement right here. He just solidified what you just said. He said, toward this end, the missionary philanthropists offered their Black students the New England college curriculum, a regime including the study of Greek and Latin, of Western civilization and its great events, and literary and philosophical works such as writers as Shakespeare, Locke, Descartes, as the keys to Black social progress. Now, ain't that a...
Let me underline that. I need to underline that, sis. And to be honest, sis, we learned that when we were coming through. I remember taking class and having to read the Oedipus play and the Romeo and Juliet play.
That's right.
It's like, we've this is the type of education that we received then, and it's the type of education that we're receiving now.
It's the same.
It's the same, sis.
And my mother used to say that. She said, school was the same since I was a little girl. And then grandmother say the same thing. It's the same stuff since I was a little girl. You know, I thought they was really exaggerating. No, it's literally the same stuff since they were little girls.
It's literally the same, sis.
Right. No new information, no nothing.
Yeah, but now we know why. Because we gotta keep people, you know, we gotta keep people at in a certain position.
That's right.
We can't educate them in such a way to empower them. That would disrupt social order, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a mode of servitude.
I just wonder how much of the missionaries the missionary churches and things that were supporting the colleges, how much of them going bankrupt was natural, you know, on a natural accord. Like, I just wonder if the bigger capitalists and industrial corporations didn't have a hand in them going bankrupt, so that they could, you know, take over that control. Because it says that they went bankrupt, but it never really says why.
Why they went bankrupt.
Right. I'm wondering what happened that they could no longer sustain.
That's a good question.
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, I wish that. Well, you're right. We could look it up, but I was wondering why he didn't. Because you're right.
Yeah, I'm looking it up because I want to know, like, what happened.
Absolutely. Like, what happened that they went, like you said, that they went bankrupt. But that's a good.
For most institutions, if you look at like our institutions, HBCUs, they make it by endowments, right? And they make it also by taxes. So what year was this? Because taxes was not people paying taxes was not maybe not prevalent at that time frame.
Okay.
Institutions are held by endowments, taxes.
I guess I was just curious to where were they getting the endowments from initially? That, you know, that was sustaining them, so they got to the point where they didn't have enough.
Well, that's a good question. That's a question to examine.
I guess that's what I was wondering.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder.
I like your point.
With that, you know what I mean? If the bigger dogs had something to do with them running out of their endowments, so to speak. I'm just curious.
Especially when talking about control.
I'm gonna find out.
I guess we look the same way today, right? In Baltimore, in city schools all across the world, and how they want charter schools to take over because they're properly funded.
Exactly.
So there's no longer they cut in city schools so they can't function.
Right.
And so privatization can come in.
Right.
And take over. So
yeah, that's why I'm wondering if that happened.
That was a good question. That's a good question.
That was a good example too. I'm really
wondering. A good example. I'm sitting here thinking.
Right. It's just making me think. It's further making me think. Like, I wondered if that would happen. You know.
Mm-hmm. Just think about it. Who's in charge today of our school systems? Is DeVos, and she was a big opponent of charter schools. She tried it first where she was from, and now she's initializing it all over the place. It's all about private big business now taking over our schools. So I can see they don't change the game, they just refine it.
That's it. That's it.
Absolutely.
But it's that old rule: if something works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? You just tweak it a little bit.
Just tweak it. Just like COINTELPRO, it worked.
Right.
So we're dealing with COINTELPRO 2, I call it 2.0. COINTELPRO 2.0. Black identity extremists. Like you said, all they did was tweak it a little bit.
That's right.
Brother Neely Fuller says,
40, 50 years ago. What'd you say, bro?
I said, Mr. Neely Fuller says this one thing about white supremacy. Say they establish it, they maintain it, they expand it, and they refine it. And they start the process all over again. So they're not going to change it if it's not broken.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely. So the next section, family, is Black education in the service of white domination. And look, sis, when I was rambling on a few moments ago, remember I was talking about that. What type of education are our children getting when they go?
That's right.
You know, is it an education to serve us, or is it an education to serve them? And what I mean by them is dominant, you know, society. So Black education in the service of white domination, Negro industrial training. That's
right there. Yep.
Negro industrial training was recognized by the industrial philanthropists as the most appropriate form of education for Blacks, who were expected to help maintain the racial order and political stability and help advance the material prosperity of the South by keeping to their assigned place and playing their designated roles in the social and economic system of that region. And he said that the place and the role of Blacks in the South, as perceived by the Northern industrial philanthropists, was not significantly different from their perception of the place and role Blacks in the North in America in general. So a lot of people thought, Sister Alima, when we went to the North, we were doing better. They were,
I know, right?
They were kinder white folks in the North, and they were better white folks in the North than down South. But really, these were two I don't want to say two chips of the same coin. What are two sides of the same coin?
That's what I would say.
They was the two sides of the same coin. It was just in the South, you know, the racism was just blatant. It was in your face. But in the North, I know that in Isabella Wilkerson's book, A Warmth, she called it The Warmth of Other Suns. I love this book. In this book, she talks about the Great Migration that took place from 1950 to 1970. And so while a lot of Blacks had migrated out of the South, and so the book focuses on three narratives of three people who left different parts of the South, and one person ended up in like New Jersey, another person ended up in California, and another person ended in, I think, Chicago or something like that. And she was just, you know, detailing their journey and some of their struggles. But it's an awesome book. But in that book, she referred to the North as a kind of the kinder mistress. So it was the same thing, you know, that you were just a little kinder, you know, in the North, but it's same perception. Same perception.
What's the name of that book?
What do you say, bro?
What's the name of that book? I'm sorry.
It's called A Warmth of Other Suns by Isabella Wilkerson. I'll show you the I'll show it to you when I cut out a little bit. I'll go in the back and grab it for you, bro, so you can see the cover.
Okay, yeah, because I want it too.
With the industrialized education, I was thinking of Booker T. Washington.
I look at him just jump in. Where you been, bro? Where have you been? We've been calling, looking for you. Like, where is he?
Right, he got out of there. I'm gonna grab the book.
I had a lot of interruptions here today. It's been a hectic day, but I got.
You muted yourself.
I had a hectic day today. It's been a lot of interruptions, and I finally got through, and everything's back smooth now.
All right, good.
And I read this book probably in about 5 days. And I had nothing else better to do because look, Sister Alima, let me show you the corner. You see that?
I know that's right.
You know, so you know, I could sit down and read for about 4 or 5 hours, but you know, this was actually sent to me, and you see my number's still on it. So that's for your boy who said I never went anywhere. But anyway, people gotta research, Brother T. They don't know the, you know. But anyway, here's the cover. I love this book.
The Warmth of Other Suns.
The Warmth of Other Suns. I love it. I love it. I love it. Great book written by Sister Isabel Wilkerson. And she took the title. She got the title from a Langston Hughes poem.
I was just about to say that. That's a poem. I know I've heard that before. Yeah.
Oh yeah. She got it from Langston Hughes.
Robert Hughes, indeed.
Yes. She got it from him. And so that's why she called it The Warmth of Other Suns. And I'm sorry, not Langston Hughes, Richard Wright.
Richard Wright. Yes. How could I not forget? How could I not know that?
Yes, I'm like, yeah. So Richard Wright. See, yeah, he talks about the warmth of other suns. And it's just saying how we were just chasing it. You know, we wanted to feel, you know, the warmth of other suns. How does it feel in another location? You know, so that's what it was about, man. And this book was awesome. But yeah, she called the South. She's like, the South was just a kinder mistress.
No.
Yeah, the North, I'm sorry. The North was a kinder, I'm trying to look to see. Yep. Part 4, page 223. The kinder mistress. Right there. So that's what made me think about it. So that, you know, we sit here and think that the perceptions that Northern people have were different than the perceptions that Southern people have, but not really.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. No,
not at all. No. So I'm on page 192. The industrial model of Black education was designed to develop habits of industry, instill an appreciation for the dignity of labor, and to primarily train a cadre of conservative Black teachers or guides who were expected to help adjust Afro-Americans to a subordinate role in the Southern political economy. All right. Any review of the perceptions of the primary purposes of Black education held by the white corporate elite today would quickly reveal that they do not differ fundamentally from those of their counterparts during the early to mid 1900s. Okay, so we got to understand that they're giving us an education to keep us subordinate. They're not giving us an education to empower us by far. You never empower the subordinate group of people, because when you do that, these people can now challenge you, right? All right. And so anyway, he goes on to discuss higher education for the few. All right. So it says that these philanthropists, and I'm like reading the second half of the paragraph, these philanthropists did not support the idea of developing they did support the idea of developing a small number, i.e. 2 high quality universities and 3 hybrid colleges of Black institutions of higher learning designed primarily to produce educated leaders whose role it was to inculcate white American values into the Black masses.
W.E.B. Du Bois, that's what I was thinking.
Exactly.
I was just about to say, oh, Brother Travis.
Facts.
That's it. That's it. Because he come from the argument is, so he came from the North, from white Quakers who sent him south. You know what I mean? He was a gifted scholar, even in elementary. And he went to Fisk University, as opposed to Booker T. Washington was a slave. That's what I make people be aware of. Booker T. Washington was a former slave.
Two extreme differences.
Two extreme differences. And his philosophy was up from slavery. What do you do when you get off a plantation? You don't have any you don't have any skills, any land, no resources to begin with. You know what I mean? People criticize Booker T. Washington, but look what the little bit of money that he did with the Rockefellers and the Carnegie's money, who had him to draw the interest off the money each year to build Tuskegee. And look at these Negroes get hundreds of millions of dollars, and look what they do with it.
Facts.
Booker T. Washington built the institution. Yep.
But let me ask you a question, Brother Travis. How do you feel about the fact that Booker T. Washington got the money from the Rockefeller and Carnegie foundations? Like, I understand you're saying that he took it and he built, a Black university. But how do you feel? How genuine was his? I guess how genuine was he? You get what I'm saying? Like, if you're being funded by these white corporate elitists, right? Then it kind of makes me feel like they also had a hand in molding and shaping Tuskegee, right?
But the thing is, you got to look at the fruits of his labor. Everything that you need for a nation was built at Tuskegee. Even the bricks to even build Tuskegee Institute was manufactured by students. Even so much so that many of the ministers who sent their kids to Tuskegee and other prominent Blacks who sent their children to Tuskegee criticized Booker T. Washington because he had them doing carpentry, plumbing, agriculture. You got to remember, George Washington Carver was down there at that time, big time heavyweight, that the United States used heavily for inventions. And what he did with the money was he built all the necessary skills that you need to develop a nation. I think Garvey is the next phase of that, because remember, Garvey in 1915 came to the United States because he wanted to use that particular program in Jamaica. You got to realize his philosophy is up from slavery. What do you do when you get out of slavery? Do you get a sandwich, or do you go to Washington, D.C. asking for equal rights? I agree with Booker T. Washington's program. Now, I'm not saying that I don't agree with the later W.E.B. Du Bois, the Pan-Africanist W.E.B. Du Bois. I agree with, I read some of his stuff, and he recanted the Talented 10. He thought that they were going to be responsible and with the liberation of Black people. So he recanted that philosophy in From Dusk to Dawn. But I got to go with coming out of slavery. I got to go with Booker T. Washington, his program.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because I know
if I may add, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead,
I just want to add to that. Me and Brother Travis had talked about this, about how they had funded Booker T. and even his mindset from a slave mindset, from that barrier to do what he did. But on what Baba Wilson has, taken this even further in saying that even those who were able to empower themselves, still operating under and promoting the system of white supremacy and racism. We hate to say it, we hate to admit to it, but we were still a part of that insanity, no matter how much we've accomplished. It was still attached and dependent upon and their agenda. Their whole think tank was behind everything accomplished. It sounds good that within, Booker, what he did, but down to it, if he was to say, you know what, I denounce white supremacy, they would have took everything away from him and he would have lost everything. So I see what Baba Wilson is getting to, that as today we need to challenge ourselves and say, you know what, we really, into what Sister Lily was saying in chapter 10, when we get there, our own independent resources, totally separate. I get a lot of issues with brothers and sisters saying, you know what, we can't be segregationalist. We have to be, because they're once they get their tentacles in, it's a wrap.
And then we can't forget that Tuskegee was also responsible for the syphilis experiment. That affected the lives of hundreds. And so we can't forget that was the site of the the Tuskegee experiment, the syphilis experiment.
Long after Booker T, but you got to realize.
Definitely after Booker T, but it was right. Yeah.
Right, but see, the thing is, we got to look at is we always have to go in context of where we are in the world at that particular time. In 1865, we in Reconstruction.
Right.
We have no actual way in which to get funds to build institutions. Booker T. Washington, where would he get resources? Right, Armstrong selected him from Hampton University to go to Alabama to build Tuskegee. But we have to look at what resources at the time of a Booker T. Washington coming out of slavery. What could he possibly have done but get money from white people to build it? Look at the hundreds of millions of dollars of basketball players in black-funded organizations today, and look what minimal resources that we have of the amount of money that we are actually producing today, with resources that we have from entertainers, basketball players, football players, entrepreneurs. Look at Michael Jordan. Look what he could do in his area. That's what I'm saying, is the amount of money and resources that we have. He was taking the interest of the Carnegies. They set up money and said, Booker T. Washington, go each year and take the interest out of that money and finance Tuskegee. He had to play the game to get where he was coming out of slavery.
I'm sorry, I agree with Brother Travis. I think sometimes we too critically assess situations with the mindset and the knowledge that we have today, but it's not applicable to that particular time period. Right. So we've always been playing this game of capitalism. And so when you play the game, you have to play it to win. I mean, he did the best that he could for his particular time period. Who else was going to fund him with that type of money?
That's right.
Like Brother said, to do the college. Who else? I mean, although we did have, of course, black millionaires at that time, as we know, but it wasn't many. And would they have really been interested in funding something like that, especially considering at that time, who really wanted to go against the, the major white supremacists? Nobody wanted to do that. So I agree with Brother Travis.
All the money it would take to run an institution.
Go, bro.
I said, and think about how much money it would take to run an institution. Even if you received money from the billionaires at that time to continually be able to fund it. Year in and year out, give room for free room and board. Because think about it, not many people could afford to pay tuition at that time.
Exactly.
Just to sustain it. So it's just something to think about, but it's definitely a good point, and that was a good history lesson there.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking too, but the Carnegie and Rockefeller, they had what was the benefit of them funding Booker T. Washington? There has to be some benefit, because we know this wasn't just good white folks.
Yeah, you know it was, of course.
I'm just wondering what the benefits are. Not knocking Booker T. Washington. I heard of the book Up From Slavery, never read it. Did read W.E.B. Du Bois, Souls for Black Folks. Oh my God, and the language, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I read that.
Oh my gosh, I was so confused. I had to keep reading things a few times.
You were talking just you have your dictionary like right on hand, like what?
Yes, so anyway, but with Booker T. Washington, I don't know too much about him, but I'm just wondering if he did get large sums of money from Rockefeller and Carnegie. I'm just wondering, what was the benefit? It had to be a benefit, and what was that benefit?
Right, and let me. If I may just clarify, I'm not against what he did.
No.
Please understand, and I agree. I mean, he had to do what he had to do at that particular time and did great things. Absolutely. But it's still, well, how can I say this? It's still operating under white supremacy. It's still promoting. Okay, put it like this. Okay, so. And I'm going back to the book. And so what Baba Wilson is teaching us is that, maybe 10 to 15 years before there was a Booker T, brother spotted to say, you know what? This is what we're going to do with this money. We have a Negro problem in this country. He brought him over here to do this, to do that. Boom, here we are. And so you had this think tank saying, you know what, man, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fund these Negroes so that they can behave in a certain manner, keep them subjugated, make them educated, make them look like us, dress like us, sound like us, And so then you have the W.E.B. Du Bois. And then you have those who say, you know what, maybe there's some that don't want to be so much like us. They just want to stay in the field. So we'll give them money too, to make them feel good, but still keep them underneath the flag. Okay. So it's still that problem. And I totally, Baba Wilson's mind is, wow, the ancestors blessed this man with this mind to let us know today that it's still going on. Yes. And be a true revolution has to break away from this whole mindset that we have to look to them, get monies from them to be able to be creative. I think somebody said it at the beginning that you start to wonder, wow, is my thoughts even my thoughts? Or is this a thought of somebody else that implanted a thought to have me thinking this way? I mean, you really, I think Naeem Akbar is really good at that, at breaking down that type of thought. I'm going to shut up and let y'all continue.
No, I mean, no. You just spoke my language when you brought up Dr. Naeem Akbar. Now, when you talk about, let's stop. Because because we got
because we about to go off. We've been going off for 20 minutes.
Brother Impul Brother Impul was getting ready. I'm getting ready to go back there and grab my community of self.
Don't let her get the book.
Breaking the chains of psychological slavery.
Don't get the book.
And know thyself.
I got it in here somewhere. I
told you on Facebook, you and I share the same library. Like, I'm convinced. As soon as I put up a book, he's like, I got that, but my cover's different. So I'm like, oh Lord, he has the first edition. And oh, there it is. Yes. I think that's the first edition, brother. I think you and I share the same daggone library.
Right.
So let's pull it back. Let's pull it back. It's just that, okay. So just to summarize what I hear where you're coming from, Brother Impul. I hear where Sister Aline was saying, Brother T and Brother Travis. But I just want to leave you guys with this. Dr. Amos Wilson says, now we're talking about Booker T. Washington and him taking this money from Rockefeller and Carnegie, right? And he did some good things with the money. I'm not refuting that at all. But on page 193, the few sentences right above the next subsection, Dr. Amos Wilson says, it is obviously not the intention of white industrial philanthropy and the white powers that be in education that Black higher education play a major role in liberating African peoples and nation from white political, economic domination, and empowering those same peoples and nations to challenge the industrial, military, technological hegemony of white people and nations. And so, you know, yes, he did some great things, you know, for the Black community, but they weren't funding this dude to liberate us. You get what I'm saying? They weren't, not at all. He may have done some good things, but all in all, it wasn't to liberate us from the grips or the grasp of racism and white supremacy. So
and that's why you had people like Marcus Garvey to follow behind him, who realized that, okay, I can pick up certain things from my elders, or I understand what the elders trying to do, but let's get the money from the people instead of getting the money. You see what I'm saying? So I get it, you know, but that's why we all learn from each elder that paves the way.
And no other organization ever created the self-reliance of a Booker T. Washington.
They haven't.
Everything that was built at Tuskegee, from they fed themselves. They did agriculture, even suits, tailoring suits, shoemaking.
Yes.
Everything for a nation to sustain itself was built at Tuskegee when it was not today. I'm not talking about the Tuskegee of today.
Right.
The original format was a total self-sustained organization that has never been replicated to this day by any organization who ever produced.
Let me ask you a question, Brother Travis. Is there a book or a paper that outlines his program?
Negro Problem. The Negro Problem. That's him and W.E.B. Du Bois wrote that together when they contrasted one another's views. It's called the Negro Problem.
Hold on. Okay, let me write this down. So, okay, they were going back and forth.
Right. Du Bois positioned his idea of the general education, you know, studying Greek and Latin and getting the what we on to right now in most colleges today is W.E.B. Du Bois's program. You know, studying history, the liberal arts. That's the format that we use today. Booker T. Washington program is not used on most institutions that I'm aware of. You know, you might have like at A&T, they still have agriculture there, but the program of Booker T. Washington is not used anymore. But they contrast one another's views in the Negro Problem.
Oh, I found it. I'm about to order it. It's like $6 on Amazon.
I'm on there right now, sis, and I'm ordering it with you. The Negro Problem. Oh my God, just a paperback, $5.99.
That's what I say. It's only $6.
Yeah, I'm clicking.
I'm about to order it.
Booker T. Washington's going to lay it out, and you're going to say, "This is what we're missing." I guarantee you.
Okay, I'm grabbing it right now. Sister Lima and I both on here. I hear her.
I know, right? I'm trying to go ahead and get it.
Oh yeah, I'm getting it right now. All right, add to the chart.
Because you know the Talented 10 became really the boule. That was an early format of the boule. Yep.
Okay, so place my order. And
well, they don't got my new card up here.
Okay, cool. I got it. All right, cool. Okay. Thank you, Brother Travis, for that information, because I want to see his nation building plan, like what he proposed. I mean, we have we got Kwame Nkrumah's plan that was laid out in Dr. Amos Wilson's in Blueprint for Black Power. I believe this was in chapter 6 or 7. He provided an outline of Kwame Nkrumah's nation building plan. You know, but I would love to hear with W.E.B. Du Bois. I would love to hear, you know, both of the arguments. So thank you for that, Jewel. No
problem.
Thank you for that, Jewel.
Had to get it on Kindle real quick just so I can get it before anybody else.
Oh, you got it, bro?
Whatever.
He sure did. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get mine next week. I'll get mine next week in the mail.
Okay, I just placed my order. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. All right, cool. So moving on to the next section, foundations and think tanks, the selling of Newt Gingrich and the Republican Party of 1994. So in this little paragraph, peace, Sister Camille. We're going to keep on pushing.
Hi, Queen.
Peace, sis. I don't know if she heard us. But okay, so at the bottom of page 193, Dr. Amos Wilson informs us that in November of 1994, the Republican Party gained control of the House and the Senate. And he's laying out in these next couple of sections, how was that possible? Okay, how did that happen? And so, all right, I'm on page 194, and it says that the Republican Party, the Republican victory, was to a significant degree deliberately orchestrated by well-funded political operatives. The ascendance of the Newt Gingrich and the Republican Party is a tribute to the white elite's masterful manipulation of the candidate selection, psychopolitical, and communication processes. The triumph of Newt Gingrich and the Republican Party is one with the triumph of conservative white elite corporations, foundations, think tanks. Their triumph is also one of the white elite corporate ownership and control of the electronic and print media. So there were a lot of things that went on. You know, it wasn't a fluke. That's the word that I was actually looking for. It wasn't a fluke that in 1994 the Republican Party gained control over the House and Senate. That wasn't by chance. A lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of energy went into ensuring that they gained control over both houses. Okay, so then he talks about the steps. Excuse me, my phone for some reason is going off. I didn't put it on mute, I guess. But anyway, the Republican Party, where are we? Because that kind of distracted me just now. Sister Lima, where was my thought?
Oh, well, you just got finished reading about the victory of the Republican Party. So now we're at the selling of Newt Gingrich and right-wing politics.
Okay, so sis, go through real fast. Take over the House.
Okay, I'll just breeze through it real quick. It just talks about GoPac, and GoPac is the community that became known as Newt Inc. And GoPac is was the backing behind Newt Gingrich. GoPac gave Mr. Gingrich new stature in his funding raising efforts. Here we are here. Let's see. It says that he mentioned once before in a quote that the House initiates all spending and all taxing bills, which is true if you know anything about politics. Like, that's where the money is. It's where they split the money. That's where they make decisions concerning the money is in the House. So, of course, the Republicans having the House is very important for them. He go on to talk about, they say that GoPac credits 33 of the 73 freshman Republicans in the House with being members of its farm team, which, of course, we know farm teams are teams that are exclusively working for that particular representative. Let's see. We go on to page 196. I don't know how deep you want to really get into Newt Gingrich, sis, because it's really just talking about his campaign. So
yeah. So it was just I didn't really want to get too deep in it.
Okay.
Dr. Amos Wilson, I had to put my phone on mute. Sis. Sometimes you're trying to concentrate on one thing.
I know.
So it breaks your concentration, and I'm getting older now. Once I forget a thought, it's over. Like, I gotta say it down.
Yes.
If I don't get it out, it's gone. So I gotta either write it down or just say it. But yeah, it was just outlining the process
right.
with the Republican.
The main thing that it highlights is showing that how the corporations that funded him, how they were able to get so many things passed, and how they were able to win the House and the seats of anything in '94 because of all of the money that they were pooling into all of these different representatives in order for them to put their votes where it needed to go.
And that's what happened. It says they raised millions of dollars.
Yes.
Millions of dollars and spent it to nurture a dynamic new generation of Republican politicians.
That's right.
So he started a farm team that could someday march from the state houses to Congress. So he developed a team. They dumped money into the team. And as Sister Alima stated, they started an organization called GoPac. All right. And GoPac started doing research. They started getting in touch with, universities. And then it says that they started they produced training videos. Training videos that were aired on college campuses. So these had always trickles down to like the university.
Exactly.
And training. So it's like once they come up with something, or once they come up with an idea or a policy or any type of thing that they want to institutionalize, Then what they do is they think about it, they put money behind it, they convince us with books and with newspapers and
That's
TV
right.
shows, and then it begins. Then it trickles down to the university. Then it trickles down to teacher training, seminars or these professional things that teachers have, and then the students are taught this ideology. You get what I'm saying? Like,
that's how it goes. It's a cycle.
It is. It's crazy. But we don't have to get really deep into this. We don't have to get deep into this at all. It's just people can read through the example and realize, as Dr. Amos Wilson said, that these people, they manipulate the candidate process, the communication processes. So that means the books, the literature that's published. And he said that they also they utilize foundations and think tanks and corporations. So this is how they get things through. This is how they take over and then convince us that they're right or that this takeover is legitimate, right? That's how they pour a lot of money into shaping the public perception. A lot of money goes into that. I tell folks all the time, I even tell my mom, stop watching the news, because that's what they want. They want to shape your perception on things that are going on. And sometimes when I talk to my mother, I feel like I might as well just pop on WBAL because she repeats that some of the newscasters are talking. So I was telling her that when you watch the news, when you're watching, CNN, even my boy Roland Martin from News One, when we tune into these different places, we got to understand, or these different we got to understand that our minds are being, our perceptions are being molded and shaped. What happened? What did I miss, Sister Alima?
He was putting up the thumb finger down for Roland Martin. I don't like Roland Martin either, brother. He's just too popular for me. I just can't.
He does, but it's just we got to understand.
Well, I mean, I can take the brother's information for what he has. He's a very knowledgeable brother, but he's just a little much.
You think he's a little extra at times.
He's a little extra, yes.
He's a little extra at times. He's a little extra. So
I love when Dr. Umar was on there. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that was pretty good though.
It was funny.
It was funny.
That was hot.
This was.
It was funny.
What we about to get into? Foundation influence on the African American community.
That's where I am. And see, here we go. And I was so glad that Dr. Amos Wilson brought this up, sis. It goes back to it makes you ask the question when an organization is there, who is funding you? That's right. The question. Who is funding you? Like, remember, when Black Lives Matter first became popular, and I used to say, Dad, how did they get so much media coverage?
So fast, right?
Right, so much media coverage. Then I remember watching the news one day, and like the head of the Black Lives Matter guy, he made it on stage with a sign, and I'm sitting here thinking, I said, wait a minute. I know that they have security, in front of the stage, on the doors. How was this Black Lives Matter guy able to bypass security and get on stage with politicians and hold up signs that say Black Lives Matter? Like, who is funding that? And they come to find out they're being funded by some Jewish dude.
George Soros.
What's the name of the brother? I mean, guy or whatever.
George Soros.
George Soros. So they're being funded. So when people sell us things, when organizations come before us, the question needs to be, who is funding you? All right? Who is funding you? So now let's talk about it on page 197. Dr. Amos Wilson says, with regard to the African American community, one can confidently argue that a number of its leading social political institutions, for example, the NAACP and the National Urban League, have to measurable degrees, compromise the interests of the community in response to their being heavily financed by white wealth in general and the white institutional wealth in particular. Foundations such as Ford and Rockefeller have loomed large in the lives of these and similar Black civil rights organizations and in the life of the Black community in general. So we have to keep in mind when we support these organizations, who is funding you? Who is funding you? So before we support and we start sharing and we get excited and all that, we have to dig a little bit deep and ask questions. Who is supporting you?
That's right.
Where you're receiving your financial backing, because wherever you are receiving your financial backing, they have a hand in what you're doing. They have some say in what you're doing. All right. So he says, he goes on to say that the Ford Foundation also influenced the generation of information regarding the African American community through its funding of research organizations, such as that led by Black social psychiatrist Kenneth Clark's Metropolitan Applied Research Center. So everyone on the panel or on the viewers, are you guys familiar with Kenneth Clark?
Yes.
Everybody's familiar with Kenneth? Okay. All right. So he's saying that that they influenced even just the generation of information, right, by funding research organizations led by, you know, people like Brother Kenneth Clark. So he says even apparently Black militant in liberation politics and movements were not spared the influence of the white corporate elite. So even our Black Power organizations, right? Mm-hmm. All right, even our Black Power organizations. So our civil rights organizations, he's saying that they were backed by foundations. All right, and now he's saying that even our Black Power, all right, our military, our Black militant groups were also backed by the white corporate elite. So it says even apparently Black militant and liberation politics and movements were not spared the influence of the white corporate elite, who were ostensibly an enemy of Black Power advocates. According to Horace and Kalandani, in 1967, a Black Power conference was held in Newark, financed by 50 white corporations.
Black Power conference. Ain't that something, sis?
Yes, I want to know who attended. Brother Travis, Brother Knowledge Born, Brother T, Brother Impool. Do you guys know about this 1967 Black Power conference? Because I want to Google who was there.
Yeah, Google it, sis.
All right, so you continue, and I'm going to Google.
Stokely Carmichael talks about that in the 80s. He brings it out a little bit.
He brought it out in the book or a lecture, brother?
Brother Baraka. Mm-hmm.
You said it was what?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. In a lecture he did.
What was the name? What was the name of the lecture?
I'm not recalling up the top. I didn't have it written down.
But I'm right
in front of me. I apologize.
No, you don't apologize. I'm just hungry, and I want to throw this right. I was going to write in my little margin. Stokely Carmichael.
There's somebody else too.
Amari Baraka, Leroy Jones.
Leroy Jones.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Stokely Carmichael.
Amari Baraka. Yep.
No, no.
Amari Baraka. Okay. Mention. Okay. So wow. So a Black Power conference. Oh man, sis, I need to Google it, right?
Yes.
All right. So a Black Power conference was held in 1967, financed by white corporations. Right now. And Brother T, you on Facebook mentioned, or I think on page 199, right?
Yeah, 199.
That's what you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 199. Yeah.
They go on to give more examples, though, while Dr. Maat is looking that up.
Okay.
67, massive rebellion to date took place in Detroit, leaving 45 blacks dead and millions of dollars worth of property damage in its wake. August 1st, the day after the troops left the city, 22 American leaders called on the nation to revise its priorities and bring more resources to bear on domestic problems and announced the formation of an urban coalition. The urban coalition, headed by John Gardner, who was the former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, and the former president of the Carnegie Foundation. So even the founders of the urban coalition, which is so-called supposedly for, I guess, the advancement of urban people, but that's even funded by the Carnegie Foundation.
Dang, they got their hand in everything.
Right.
In everything, right, brother?
Yeah.
Right.
Everything, as well as it said labor leaders, big city mayors, and businessmen like David Rockefeller and Geraldine Philippine, chairman of the board of General Electric and trustee of the National Industrial Conference, a foundation finance policy organization. Funds for the urban coalition were to be provided by the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Carnegie Foundation, and the Ford Foundation. So once again, we see that our some of our big corporations that we think are for the advancement of Black people are still probably ran by these same foundations. I wouldn't be surprised.
So this was this the I'm sorry, this Black Power conference. Is this the one that was held in Newark?
Yes, it said Newark.
Okay.
You found some info on it?
I found a couple of articles. It's just giving me, you know, it was one of the largest such gatherings of Black leaders with representatives of nearly 300 organizations and institutions from 126 cities in 26 states, Bermuda and Nigeria.
Yep, they show Malana Karenga. They show also at the 1967, they show Amari Baraka. Like you said, Stokely, who if somebody said Stokely Carmichael, he's there. I got footage from the 1967. Let me put the link in there. This is a video, small video here. And it's showing Karenga. I see, like I said, Baraka. Let's see here. Let me put that link. Okay.
Goodness. It says 50 of them. It says, well, they said it was financed. The conference was financed by 50 white corporations.
Yeah, I see that link.
Yes, I see it, brother.
Okay.
Let me see.
That'll be interesting to see. He said who financed them and what was their affiliation. But maybe one of the historians can help me here. One of the historians can help me here by saying, didn't the Black Panther Party have a lot of outside influences that helped them with the movement, such as politics? They called on politicians, superstars with money.
Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda. So they got a lot of funding from outside Hollywood as well.
The man who played the Godfather, what's his name? Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando.
Yep.
Yes, I just found that out.
So Marlon Brando did a lot for the Native Americans as well, in his politics. You know, spoke out. So I mean, the Black Panther Party received a lot of money, a lot of funding. I don't know from what sources, but you know that was even Fred Hampton. Like, hey,
a lot of attorneys. You're right, brother. A lot of attorneys. That's what people don't realize. The Panthers was organized. They had a powerful defense fund. You know, people who, you know, the legal aspect of the Panthers, you know, they had their stuff together. That was a very the early Panthers was a very disciplined organization.
That's why they had to feel the need to take our brother Fred out.
That's right.
You know? That brother was very, very in tune.
Fred Hampton.
Yeah, brother Fred Hampton.
Yes, indeed.
And what, 21? They killed him at 21 or 22.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Powerful brotro.
Absolutely.
Him and Mark Clark.
Right.
Yeah.
But on page 199, I think we was discuss that.
Yeah, you had brought that up on Facebook, I believe.
Right.
A week ago, so I wanted you to share that with the group.
Okay. Well, do you want me to read it or just bring up my point?
Yeah, you can just bring it up. I want you to read too. However you feel.
Okay, so while vigorously repressing the killing, jailing, framing, ostracizing the Black Power advocates for whom Black Power meant confrontation with the system and agitation of the revolutionary change, the rich white establishment at its press began to promote recognition of the reasonable connotations which the term Black Power had in the mouths of responsible militants. As the Wall Street Journal reported in July 1968, Black Power is being newly defined in a way that may be quite so frightening to the white man, and particularly to Wall Street Journal readers. Now, what now seems to be happening in the tortuous history of race relations in America permitted that the journal is that the Black man is coming of age, while maintaining that extremist Blacks and their radical ideas must be purged. The journal noted that white America is the majority, and the new Black leadership, while adopting more and more a do-it-for-self stance, still does not want to compete complete breakaway from the rest of America. So when I read that this passage and realized that it resembled so much of the August report from the FBI's talking about Black identity extremists and how they would attack police enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked and I put on posts that this was identical. But one of the things that struck me the most was when they said that Black America was coming of age.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of Nellie Fuller's book, that he states that white supremacists believe that African Americans or Africans are children,
Mm-hmm.
that we are dependent of white supremacy. So when the article, the Wall Street Journal made a note that look at these African Americans here,
Right.
they try to come of age as if we were trying to be adults or we trying to make a stance to be on ourselves and be separate from
Yes.
white supremacy. So that was a call, the same as is a call from the August report from the FBI's. When now they're recognizing that we are wakening up and that we are rising, they said this has to be a stop. Look, once again, they're trying to do for self and remove themselves from white supremacy. As we read how they created white supremacy, we have been a part of every potion.
Absolutely.
So one thing that was given to me, can you segregate? People can segregate, but can money segregate? Because it's all part of the same pot. So what they say here, look at them once again, try to separate from us by building their own, but still trying to be a part of America. So that's a dilemma that we have to look into. And I just thought that article written by the FBI was another call of this action that the elder ancestor has put into place.
Absolutely. That's what I thought about. I said, oh, when I read it again, I was like, this is what Brother T was trying to convey on Facebook. Yes, this is definitely, when I read it, it's definitely reminiscent of that FBI report that was dropped back in August. And then it's crazy to me how, they redefined Black power. Wasn't that crazy? Like, it shows you how they shape public opinion, public discourse.
That's right.
Like they use the newspapers and the journals to change the definition of Black power.
That's right.
As you
think about this, sister. Think about this. Now, when they said that we are Black identity extremists, in that report, they had Michael Johnson. In that report, they had Gizmo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, just say, for instance, I drive around in my truck with the red, black, and green flag in the dash.
Right.
If they identify that flag to Micah and Gizmo, I'm a Black identity extremist.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. That's right.
So if I protest in Baltimore due to an injustice and I'm wearing the red, black, or green, I'm a Black identity extremist.
Mm-hmm.
So see, it's a target that they placing on our back just for us taking pride
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're shaping, because once I drive next to maybe a Caucasian, they're gonna say, "Look at that person. He's an extremist."
Yeah, he's a Black BIE.
That's right. Based off the perception that was molded.
I have a question that just popped in my head, and I need y'all to help me with this one. Now, when we talk about rap music, we know we have these rappers that get out here and they talk about the gun violence and they talk about raping hoes or excuse me, with this and getting with that. But all the while, they sitting somewhere in a mansion so far removed from that lifestyle.
Yes.
That's
That's
Do
right.
you think?
That's right.
Now let's look at this in the Black activist movement. or I'll dare say even in the conscious movement, do you think that that happens where you have those who rile brothers and sisters up, but they're so removed from what's really going on in the streets?
Yep. That's true.
Okay. I'm saying this because this thought just popped in my head that we have those that have pushed our brothers and sisters into this emotional tirade, and causes police. It's almost like going back to what Baba Wilson said. You have this think tank. Okay, let me pull on a Dr. King. Let me pull on a so and so to get these niggas riled up. And then when they act a fool, it's going to give us open season to kill more of them. Okay? Because if we use the method, let's educate, then we can properly move as one, okay, where it's just getting riled up and going out there acting cool. What are your thoughts on that? That's what I'm saying. Help me get my thoughts together.
I was just trying to figure out the question. Unless I missed it, because I did just come in on it. What was the question?
Okay. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna be honest.
I feel like you're trying to make a point as opposed to asking a question.
The point, okay, let me just make a point. Forget the question. The point is, I think that some of our brothers and sisters have been pushed into, because of this, what the white agenda is, to exterminate a lot of our brothers and sisters who would do us good if they really sat at the feet of those and got wisdom on how to unify, how to build through group economics. They see that. They see it and say, okay, you know what? These brothers and sisters are getting too strong. They're getting some wisdom from their leaders. So let's pull on so-and-so. Let's pull on this person over here to rile them up and get them all angered and whatnot. Now we can begin to jail them or even kill them.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, I agree completely.
Me too.
In my opinion, I feel that that's what NWA, I feel like that's what NWA was created for. Because in a sense, it's like some of their music was kind of revolutionary, but if you listen to it as a whole, it was very negative and it incited negativity, which in turn spawned jail sentences for a lot of brothers and sisters.
Exactly. And Geronimo Press broke on that also, the late, may he rest with the ancestors. He said, reason why many of the Panthers and people like the Panthers and Black conscious movement leaders like the Panthers were in jail because they didn't want them to influence the next generation that came up behind them. So many of the great minds, like a Sundiata and Matula Shakurs, they were incarcerated because they strategically didn't want them to influence the next generations to come.
Exactly. Not in a positive way. So why was it that NWA was allowed to say F the police? Because in the same breath, they would also call a sister a bitch or a whore or a slut.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes, sister.
Facts.
That's it. Facts. That's facts all the way.
See, here now, point proven. So here we have Brother Ice Cube. And a lot of those persons that were buying his music are probably dead today because of something he said.
That's right.
Facts.
That's right.
Sure.
That just reminds me of what me and my husband were talking about today. And we were just talking about accountability, and when do we take accountability? And even when it comes to people that make music, you have a certain level of accountability to the people that listen to your music. You hear a lot of people say, well, it's not my responsibility or whatever. I'm not a role model, blah, blah, blah. But in essence, if you have a communal mindset, which we all should, then we have to have some level of accountability.
Yes. But like you said, they don't have a communal mindset, sis. They got an individual mind, so it's all about me and mine's.
What is Atlanta like? As conscious wise, is it a big movement going on? I mean, it seems like that'd be a set off place for a Black conscious.
Atlanta?
Yeah,
I would say so. There's it's definitely like night and day for me coming from North Carolina and being here in Atlanta. It's very, very different. I would definitely say it would be a good location because Black people hold a lot of power here. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of political power, not just money, but a lot of political power. So that's the key. So I think Atlanta is one of could be possibly a good location for people who are interested in nation building. I know there's quite a few people out here in my community that are actually looking into buying up properties and stuff. If anybody is interested in getting in on that.
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And that's what drew me really to Dr. Oya is the scholarship that this group provides. And I think that it's missing when we're trying to build. I told me and Brother Travis was talking. One sister said to me, I understand that you're trying to study this person, or their works and this and that, but we need to do work right now. I'm like, first of all, it's thundering outside. And on the corner. I mean,
right.
I mean, so let's be realistic here. I mean, first of all, you need to, understand what the ancestors are speaking to us and trying to pour into us, build that way. Because if we build off emotion, we're gonna be dead or locked up. We can't do nothing. We're right in step of what the think tanks want us to do.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Agree. I can't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more, brother. Couldn't agree with you more.
So where we at now, sis?
Page 199. Brother T read that. So we're on page 200. All right. And so Dr. Amos Wilson ends with, he says, thus it is plain to see that in the single-minded pursuit of its class interests, the ruling white male elite seeks to bias the policy formation process of the government in its favor, often to the detriment of other groups and classes. This class views the government and the resources of the country and world as its very own special preserve to dispose of it as it sees fit. Therefore, it uses its immense material and human resources to create and redefine reality. I'm gonna say that again. It uses its immense material and human resources to create and redefine reality. Look at this society that they're building right now. They're building a gender fluid society in our times.
That's right.
So they're literally redefining the roles of males, redefining the roles of females, redefining the types of families we have. This is what they're doing in front of our very eyes. So wait a minute. It says that the white elite, okay, it says it uses its immense resources and human resources to create and redefine reality.
Yes.
And to shape and deceive the consciousness of those it seeks to shamelessly exploit. Okay? So they're using their resources, material and humans, and they're shaping our consciousness. That's why I'm telling y'all, at some point we had to read Dr. Amos Wilson books, The Falsification of African Consciousness. I believe that I pronounced the title.
I think we should read it next. Didn't we say we were gonna read it next?
Since you know how many books we said we were gonna read next.
Hey, Rugu was supposed to be next.
Rugu. We said The African Personality by somebody else.
But I think we should stick to our original thought, which was to read a series of books from one particular author.
It's not that long.
We started, you're right, sis.
Falsification is not that long either. Yeah,
no,
I got that.
But it's not. It's a short book.
All right, y'all. We'll vote on it. We'll vote on it. Let's finish these couple of pages up. So it says that I already highlighted, but I want to take my pen and actually underline it so that it stands out even more. All right, so they use their material and human resources to create and redefine reality. Side note, did you guys know that they're trying to decriminalize pedophilia and trying to make it a sexual preference?
I heard about that. I really hope that doesn't pass. I heard about that.
Absolutely. I mean, so this is how they are. It says creating and redefining reality to shape and deceive the consciousness of those it seeks to shamelessly exploit. All right. So, okay, the need for African-centered information and strategy centers. All right. So he goes on to say, look, our review of the white male dominated, policy formation network, the power and influence it generates and exerts by obviously it implies that its detrimental effects on the African-American community are to be neutralized. That they must be countered by an effective African-American controlled network. This network must provide the powers that be in the African-American community with the relevant information, intelligence, strategy, and tactics for advancing the community's interests and for liberating African people from their oppressors. So he's saying here that they fully endorse Theodore Cross's proposition regarding the need to organize a Black controlled intelligence agency and strategy center. All right. The different steps. This goes into page 201. All right. Goes into page 201. So what are the, he's saying, what are the kind of information, what kinds of information will this new Black intelligence agency search out, analyze, and publish? All right. So he gives us a list of questions. All right. Some are, what are the principal underlying causes of Black inequality? What in order of importance are the current forces that pose the greatest obstacles to the progress of Blacks? To what extent, if any, is racial inequality self-repairing if openly competitive and bias-free markets can be established? Are simple and well-enforced laws against racial bias in commercial and employment selection sufficient in due course to cause Blacks to catch up to whites? So he's saying that these are a list of cities, and he names some more all the way through page 202 of questions to be answered by the Black intelligence agencies. Can you guys name any Black intelligence agencies? Like, where are they? Nope. Like, where are the Black intelligence agencies today?
The Black Caucus? I don't know. That one.
I'm like, where are our African-centered information and strategy centers?
We don't have any.
We don't have any, and that's why it's so important to support platforms like, Do the Knowledge Radio, Hop Online, support Lily La Poetic. Like, you gotta support the platforms that we have. I support Dr. Boyce Watkins' platform. I love the information that he puts out. Thank you so much, T, for putting me on with that brother. I think it was months ago or last year sometime. He put me on with Dr. Boyce Watkins.
He's a good brother.
Yeah, he is. And I've been tuning in. And I've also tuned into some of the sister Yvette I think her name is Campbell or Candle.
Yeah, I like Yvette Carnell.
Carnell?
Yvette Carnell.
Okay, yeah, Yvette Carnell, some of her videos. So I listen to a lot of these platforms. So we got to support our African-centered information strategy and centers.
Indeed.
Yeah, he has some problems in the UK. You heard about that, didn't you?
What happened?
Yeah, that they jailed him for 8 hours over in the UK.
Why?
They didn't have a reason.
Right. These people know the heavyweights that's starting to come up in the Black conscious community. I think these governments is working together. They're doing a lot more because Huey and them thought that since they was teenagers, that they weren't that relevant to like the FBI and institutions like that. But they watching us more than we think that they're watching us, I think. I really believe that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So let's continue. It says, however, centers founded to deal with those important questions and issues and to provide in-depth and pragmatic analyses, as well as to plot strategies and tactics for Black empowerment must be totally funded by the African-American community.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So these our centers, our information and strategy centers had to be fully funded by us, because if you got other folks, funding you, then they have some say-so in your direction and mission of your company. So he goes on to talk about one of the centers. Says the center provides, it publishes a magazine called Focus. So what was the center? Is this Kenneth Clark's Metropolitan Applied Research Center? I believe it is.
Is that the Kenneth Clark from the 1960s? The old Negro Kenneth Clark?
For 1970?
Yeah, the Kenneth Clark, the one that Malcolm debated.
I think we established that it's not the same.
Is it not the same?
That's what I'm gonna look that up, because I know Malcolm debated him.
It said it was founded in 1970.
1970. That could be Malcolm then. Okay.
No, it wasn't Brother Malcolm.
Was it Kenneth Clark? Let me look him up.
But says it publishes a magazine called Focus, which mainly speaks to Black politicians. So it says that
Yeah, that's him. That was before that was founded. That's him. Yeah, Malcolm.
Oh, okay.
Malcolm debated him.
That's the same Kenneth Clark?
Yeah, Malcolm debated him. It's on YouTube. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's on YouTube. Yeah. Malcolm ate him up too. You know Malcolm.
And Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that that this organization, he's saying, well, look, the objectives, it may be genuine, and says it's active, interest relevant to the issues of concerning the Black community. But he said we may expect its objectives and interests will be confined within the limits defined by the white corporate foundation elite, which funds it, and therefore within limits sets the demand of white supremacy. So he's saying that that a lot of our information and strategy centers have to be Africa. It has to be funded by us, or else people have some say so in our interests. So moving on to page 203, we only got a couple of pages left. He said the need for the African American community to establish self-supporting institutions should be evident if the community is to generate and exercise genuine Black power. So Baba is saying that we have to institution build. Says this need to also underscore the community's further necessity to increase its wealth by capturing its internal markets and extending its reach into the larger national, international market systems. We got to connect with Mama Africa. We have to. We have to utilize this internet to our benefit while we have it. We may not always have this internet.
And we need to establish some businesses.
Absolutely.
Go over and establish businesses, because if we really learn the trade, the currency trade, I mean, it's unbelievable. Do you know you can open a business in Senegal for like $3,000?
And that's amazing. That's a good point that you bring up. Just the $3,000.
Right, that's nothing, like we spend that on frivolous things throughout a possible year, things that we don't necessarily have to spend it on. We spend that money. We could open up a business with that.
That's less than $300.
Why not take and send our kids to college over there? You know what I mean? Go to Sheikh Anta Diop University. We could spend $1,000 a year for tuition for our kids, opposed to paying $10,000 a year over here.
It cost me $350 to donate to my family member in Liberia for Liberia University.
Wow.
$350. That's for a year. So, wow. And you know that right now in Africa, a lot of the countries on the continent are investing in cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
So the exchange is even easier.
That's right.
Than it was before. So if we can create an international trade, the monetary pathway is easier.
Yes.
And that we all can benefit from it, and we can create our own currency just based off that information. So we're teaching our kids the industrial way. We need to teach them the new technological way.
Yes.
To do things.
I agree with the brother. We need to push STEM. Dr. Maat is heavy on that. STEM, we need more of it in our community. We really, really do. It's important.
Absolutely. We got to push STEM. I'm going to put a video up tomorrow showing Jalen on this software called codestudio.org. And my baby was doing if-else statements, like conditional statements in programming.
Wow.
I put him on there an hour a day. He's in he's almost finished the second course. It's like several courses, and he's like in the second one. But it's just live time and showing him programming. And I'm going to talk about how we gotta, like you said, we gotta push them. And more importantly, as parents, our job is to nurture the talents and abilities of our children. We have to. So if you recognize that your child excels in something, push them. Dump money into it, push them. You know what I mean? And develop, the other talents and skills. But we have to nurture our children's talents and abilities.
I totally agree. Now, I have an IT degree, so I definitely back technology, and I work in technology. That's what I do for a living. But what would we do if we don't have a means to sustain ourselves and begin to move towards a sustainability program for our people? If these white people cut us off tomorrow, how will we sustain ourselves as a people? we still got to have a agrarian system.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So the gaining of land.
Yes, yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? And also we have to have these things. If
Yes,
they
sir.
get cut off tomorrow, we have to have these things immediately.
That's right.
But and the points of what Dr. Maat was saying about Jalen learning coding, which is a powerful thing. I was doing some reading and looking at some videos all week about the mining. If anyone's familiar with the cryptocurrency,
Bitcoin mining, absolutely.
yeah, they're doing the mining. Kids are learning mining at ages 15, 16, and they're making upward bounds of $100,000 to $200,000 a year trading these currencies. Now, as you know about mining, mining is creating the cryptocurrency, which people find value in.
And solving algorithms.
Solving algorithms. So, I mean, so these things are very important for us to learn as well.
Right.
And hey,
Absolutely.
like I said, this is our own currency that creates more money.
That's right. That's right.
And these are things that we can do in America and also outside to the continent.
That's the key, is to interact, get in some way, because all the resources is, right, like you said, in the continent. And Liberia is an excellent idea. I've been thinking about that for a long time. That's an excellent location, I think, to begin some of us who want to migrate to.
That's where my family's from. I mean, it's $1,500 to buy some land there.
How many acres for 15?
So you're talking about maybe two acres.
That's damn good. That's a damn good deal.
That is a lot.
$1,500, but right now it's being developed by the Asian influence.
Oh Lord.
You know, the President Johnson, Saliba Johnson, she sold off a lot of Liberia resources for them to create roads and universities. I mean, for schools. So 25 years of, you know, grabbing the resources, and as people have reported, Africa is becoming influenced by the new colonialists, which are the Asian influences.
Is Freetown still there? And how was that doing?
That's a good question. I have family that lives in Maryland County, and they all live outside of Moravia. So that's what I'm familiar with, because I have cousins, I have my uncles that still live there. So I send resources every 2 weeks to help out with living expenses and things like that. And that's how I get to understand exactly what to do next. And the plan is now for them to develop business there. Like if I send, you know, deodorant sprays, laptops, cell phones, these are things that they can sell there and help sustain themselves.
Yes.
You know, $25 go a long way.
It really does.
$81 to our dollar. You know what I'm saying? So
they was having a civil war over there for a while. Then, so that's all over. 16 years.
Yeah, 16 years. That ended. And they have been having stable government.
Oh,
wow! They have a woman president. That's the President Johnson, the won the Nobel Peace Prize 6 years ago. Wow. So right now they're changing government, and hopefully they can stick together and get things in order.
That's powerful.
Yeah. But like you said, going to the continent and starting.
Yes, I agree.
We have to build that relations. But if we have our monies, like I said, we have to understand this new technology. I brought my first fraction of a Bitcoin this week, so I'm pretty excited. Just learning this aspect of it, so we can create our own currency, so we can get off this corporate plantation and this money system, this fiat, which is not worth anything. You know what I'm saying? So we have to get on the ball with it, you know.
Only backed by the government. That's the only thing makes it.
That's right.
That's right.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on, so we could close this on now, because it's already 9:05.
Yes.
Right, so we only got a couple of pages. I'm just going to briefly highlight or briefly touch on some of the things. So he gives us a list at the bottom of page 203 of just a list of characteristics that would define our intelligence agencies and centers. So he gives us some pointers. He's saying that you know, that we need to sufficiently sophisticated to detect and expose where appropriate tax policies and administrative rulings that do harm to the economic prospect of most Blacks. And he said we need economists, sociologists, political strategists. They're saying that we need, you know, a Black intelligence agency to shape the Black political agenda and plan tactics, and that we must discover open windows for Black political power to move in and share, you know, control of the institutions and cities. They're saying that we have this caucus, or these caucuses should be able to hold the Black politicians, you know, responsible for their actions. So politicians should be held responsible. Moving on to page 203, and I have just a few things highlighted. He said that Blacks must break the white monopoly of the means of production. They must also dismantle the white monopoly on information, the raw material for thinking and planning. So it is. So not only did they, you know, the white folks have a chokehold on, you know, land and resources and technologies and things of that, but they also dominated information. And remember, whoever controls the information controls the mind, right? So he's saying that we must dismantle the white monopoly on information, the raw material for thinking and planning. All right. And he also said that the Black nation in the United States, like any other nation, will be no stronger than its information and intelligence.
That's right.
So we need information. You know, we have to study, we have to research.
Yes.
We have to study and we have to research. We need information. So he's saying that we're no stronger than the information that we have. Why do you think the government has an entire agency called the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency? They're collecting intel, and these people are doing this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, collecting intel, staying on top of things. So, you know, we have to begin to, I totally understand why it says that, you know, that we will be no stronger than the information and the intelligence that we have. All right. So anyway, moving on to the last section on the Black hand side, Black Power Networks and Institutions of Higher Learning.
Love that title. I love that title. Yes, I remember coming up to say that back in the day on the Black hand side. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm thinking about Queen Latifah, Black Rain, when she had the song, "Give Me 5 on the Black hand side." Oh,
say that.
That was Queen Latifah, and she had a song called Black Hand Side. But anyway, I'm at the bottom of this page where he says they may argue. Let me see. Therefore, there are those who think that a class analysis instead of race analysis would be more appropriate here. He says they may argue that racism is only instrumental to ruling class interests. This proposition implies that the common enemy of both the Black and white masses is their domination by the ruling class, whose processes of ruling we have described here so far. But listen, I've heard this argument. Like, I've actually heard people say that poor whites and Black whites have the same thing in common. We're all poor, and that it is not the poor white people that we have to worry about. It's the white elite that we have to worry about. Like, I've actually heard people argue that. They're saying that the common enemy between, I guess, poor whites or regular white folks, that we have a common enemy, and that common enemy is the government. It's the white, you know, elites. That's what people claim, and I've heard that argument. But I like how Barbara Amos Wilson addresses that. You know, I love how he's addressed that. He addresses this by quoting W.E.B. Du Bois in 1968. He says, as to the masses, including Blacks and whites of all classes, we agree with W.E.B. Du Bois, 1968, who described them as not split along horizontal lines. So he's saying that we can't say that, i.e. an integrated division of Blacks and whites along middle class, working class, lower class lines. He said, but as split along the vertical fissure, a complete separation of classes by race, cutting across economic layers. So he goes on to argue, even in one side of this color line, the dark masses were overwhelmingly workers, but in an embryonic capitalist class, nevertheless, the split between white and Black workers was greater than that between white workers and capitalists. Okay, and this split depended not simply on economic exploitation, but on the racial folklore grounded on centuries of habits, of instinct, habits, and thought, and implemented by the conditioned reflex of visible color. So they're saying that even though it might be the ruling elite who may be controlling and dominating and exploiting not only black people, but also white folks, W.E.B. Du Bois and also Dr. Amos Wilson are saying, wait a minute, even though we may have that common enemy, there's still an enemy here because of the different racial folklore. He said, grounded on centuries of instinct, habit, and thought, and implemented by the conditioned reflex of visible color. So he's saying there's still a division. So even though you may say that we have a common enemy, you know, there's still a division based on racial folklore, and there's still a solidarity between a color solidarity that exists between the ruling elite and the white folks that may be poor and lower middle class. They still have a commonality, even though they may be enemies. There's still a common tie, and that's their skin pigmentation. It's
That's right.
tie.
That's right.
That's what gives them, thus in essence, the superiority of the white complex. It is the color. It's not necessarily their money.
Right.
That's just a bonus. It's the color that makes them better, because even when they first came over here, they still thought they were better than the natives. I mean, they didn't have any money. They were poor. They were sick. They were dying. But they still managed to convince themselves that the natives were savages and that they needed to be conquered.
Wow, good point. Great point. I think who was it? Frederick Douglass had dealt with that when the feminists were trying to use him on their platform. He used the same thing. And when he got up to speak, they thought he was going to rally for them. And he was like, look, there's a distinct difference between the black plight, feminist plight, you know, for the white woman to have a job and to be equal to the white man, you know, the sister and the black man are still just trying to fight just to have a place in the sun, to quote Honorable Marcus Garvey. But you're right. And it's funny that all these groups, I'm not trying to take it off direction here, but all these groups always want to identify with our plight, whether it's the feminists or the homosexual agenda. They always want to try to identify with the African plight.
Absolutely. So I'm looking like, where do we go? Okay, so right here. Now, and he speaks about this. He says, the verticality of the split between blacks and whites from the ruling elite, if there was an equivalent black class, down to the very lowest of classes implies that in reality, we are dealing with an exclusively white nation state, which excludes blacks at all of its class levels. This connotes that despite the exploitation of the subordinate classes of both ethnic groups by the ruling white elite, the white lower class are joined in racial solidarity. Let me go ahead and underline that.
Let me highlight this.
That's right.
Yes. So even though these sources, so the white elite, let me write this down. That's what underline is.
Joined in racial solidarity with the white elite against the realization of the true and full citizenship of blacks in the United States.
So they already have that common bond, that racial solidarity, that skin color. That even though they don't have their money, they still have that mentality when it comes to whiteness. So moving on to page 206. If black power is our goal, he said we must develop and use an intimate and expert knowledge of the nature and organization of white power and of the white nation. So he's saying we have to study them. Just like they've studied us, we have to study them. Why should we? It says we should study its class interest structures, its policy formation and execution networks, and its governmental structures and operations in terms of how they may be counterbalanced by equivalent African-American based political economic structures, policy formation, execution networks, governing structures and operations. This implies the development of a black nation within nation, which would fund, organize, and operate its own power networks in order to penetrate, favorably influence, or counter those of the white elite. So then he calls for a need of full development. Moving on, he's saying that Black institutions chartered by white elite, funded and influenced in their composition and direction by that elite, for those very reasons cannot operate freely and fully in the interest of African American community and in the interest of the worldwide African community. There is a severe need, he again emphasizes this, for the African and Pan-African communities to develop African-funded special interest and policy formation institutions, as well as several world-class universities and resources. Now, I love this definition, Sister Alima. I gotta read it. I put it on Facebook a few times, where he describes the function of an education. And I'm gonna actually
yes, I had that highlighted too.
Yes,
Wait,
and I'm
talking about right here, a people, sis. You talking about right there, a people bereft of educational institutions dedicated and designed to defend their interests and to solve their problems are essentially a defenseless people, a people vulnerable to the exploitation of other peoples, as well as vulnerable to annihilation. We cannot advance or appropriately defend our interests and lives as an African people if we place the fate of our community in the hands of the educational establishments of our oppressors and enemies, and in the hands of those Africans educated in them. African peoples and African leaders should be the recipients of an African-centered education. No African should be granted leadership in the African community who has not been certified through education or experience as African-centered in consciousness, identity, and orientation. In the absence of such institutions today, it is incumbent on the so-called predominantly Black college and universities and the Black and African studies programs in these and the predominantly white institutions to develop teaching, training, and research departments in all areas vital to African communal interests. Intense education and research must not only occur in the areas of history, culture, political science, and victimology, toting all the ailments of Black suffering followed by white establishment dictated or defined recommendations. Every department in predominantly Black colleges and universities should require all their students to attend courses taught from an African-centered perspective and designed to achieve African-centered ends.
Absolutely. I have that. You stopped at page 207. 207. Absolutely.
I had this really quickly. Black universities and think tanks must increase their African-centered research, their consultancy relations with the Black community, and fully engage themselves with Black community development on all levels and in all areas. Because we seem to think that there's one path, and I say this all the time, that there's one path to like liberation, but there's so many areas that we have to focus on. There's so many areas that we have to hit, and there's so many areas that we need people who are proficient in. So that's why I tell everyone, stay in your lane. You know, whatever someone else is doing, that's okay, because if that's their path to get to liberation, that's fine, because there's more than one.
Absolutely, sis. And I just want to drive home that your education is to solve your problems. Like people,
exactly.
You know what kills me? When people come out of high school, all right, and this is just one of my pet peeves. When I talk to younger people, they say, well, I'm in the 12th grade, or I'm a junior, or I'm graduating. And then you say, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Or what are your plans? They say, I don't know. So you've been in school. Let me get this right. Because remember, we send our children to school to get an education, right? And we never ask questions. What kind of education what kind of education is our child receiving? We don't ask that question. We just know we're sending them to get an education. But your education should teach you who you are, right? Your education should also cultivate or nurture your talents and your skills and your abilities, right? But you got people that come out of school, they don't know anything or they can't do anything. Like, so you've been in school from kindergarten or pre-K or Head Start, wherever you started. Yet now 18 and you come out and it's like, what can you do? Nothing. I mean, you get what I'm saying, Sister Alima? Just like Sister Travis stated earlier, you have people who are educated, but they don't know how to farm. You say educated, and you have some people who are educated who can't sew a button on a shirt. You get a piece of carpet. So what did your education teach you? It taught you how to take orders. That's what it taught you.
Exactly.
I remember when I was matriculating through elementary, middle, and high school, and even through probably my freshman or sophomore year over at Morgan, it was a lot of regurgitation. I tell you something, you repeat it. I tell you something, I give you an assignment, you go do it, you come back. So you're really being conditioned to take orders and to take instructions and to mimic.
Even if think about the things like we just mentioned earlier, what the children are learning, it's the same information even as they go from elementary to middle to high school. It's just they teach them a little bit more about the same subject. They're not even learning things different as they're elevating through this system. It's the same information being crammed down their throats. That's why they get out of high school and they don't know what they want to do. No one ever asked them when they were coming up, what do you want to do? There was never any focus on, hey, what do you want to do in life? The focus on being a good employee.
Exactly. See, that's what Washington was right in this aspect. People came to the school to become teachers or whatever, or basic general educations, whatever they wanted to go into. But they had the skill set when they graduated because he made them do the agriculture. He made them to do the industrial aspect along with the education. See, that's where he was correct. You could go into whatever you wanted to go into if you wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, but you still had that skill set of nation building. That's where he was right.
Exactly. I agree.
Absolutely.
They're so bold here in the area where we live at in Pennsylvania, that they have schools that's called preparatory high school, and they're private schools. And it's crazy because the public schools, you know, they're just called as so-and-so public school. But here we have two major private schools, one that I went to and one that my son is going to currently, and they're known for preparatory schools to take you to that next level.
Right.
And so as Dr. Oya was talking, I'm like, you know what? Putting out in front of you to the rest of the city, these other schools are just preparing you for average life. But if you really want to make it, you need to go to these preparatory schools. And it's something, when I came out of high school, I was prepared next level. And I would talk to my homeboys and I'm like, okay, they was like, I mean, after we graduated, they had no idea. I'm like, wait a minute, you weren't being prepared? You know, it was just like, man, we just barely made it through. You know, my counselors, we didn't even see our counselors. Don't even know my counselors' names. You know, we had a relationship with our counselors our freshman, sophomore year, or whatever, whatnot, you know, to prepare us. But on a general consensus, the schools here it's just what it is.
So some schools here in Baltimore, Dr. Oyama, you can help me out. Like Baltimore City College,
yes,
and Western and Poly, they will be college preparatory schools, correct?
Yep.
So those kids will have an idea exactly because of what they learned trade-wise, what their next step would be. Like I know my sister's next step was engineering. She wanted to go to school for engineering, you know, because that's what the Western was an engineering high school, you know, if I wasn't mistaken. So that's like kind of like given for certain schools, as the brother was saying, like in Pennsylvania, a preparatory, getting you prepared for the next step. So hopefully,
that's correct.
With education.
That's what I went to. I went to Notre Dame Prep from 7th through 12th grade. All of my friends who they college graduates, and so am I, but all work for other people. Like you go back to you saying, Dr. Maat, is you know, what kind of it's a regurgitating education. We were prepped to go to college. Yes, you took college prep classes, and we from 9th grade up, you prepare for the ACT and the SAT to go to college. You know, we all graduated from college, but we all of them, you know, I have a business on the side, you know, as a marketer, but all of them work for corporate America. You know, it prepares you, like you said, Dr. Maat, to work for other people.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, though, in a way to control the masses and to control power, there has to be different levels of education, because everyone can't get like a bomb-ass education, right? Because then we'd all be politicians and really amazing things. So somebody's got to get the basic education, and then there's got to be something specifically delineated for people of a certain wealth chamber that they have to go to. Like, that's how you regulate the power. We can't give you good education. It's just not conducive to what we're trying to do here, people.
And it's not really an education, really. It's
really
like
not.
it's sustaining the system. If
Exactly.
we were really getting the education, we'd be in power.
Right.
And we'd be running things. Right.
Exactly. That's why when people go to Howard,
Mhm.
not Howard, but Harvard, they come out with a whole different perspective on life as opposed to the person who went to Howard and just partied the whole time.
Right.
Oh man, so sis, we finished chapter 9 up. Next week.
And chapter 10 is a short one.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, did you want to read a little bit of chapter 11, or do you want to kind of just stick with chapter 10 and just maybe have a light conversation next week? Maybe
Yeah,
instead
let's
of going
just do that. Maybe we can utilize that time to really talk about some different things. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, cool. All right, so next week we will pick up with chapter 10, the candidate selection process.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this, sis. The selling of the candidate, party politics.
Yes, it's good. You know, I've been reading it. It's
For a
good.
Black political party. Oh yeah, so that's and then he goes into chapter 11, ideology and the legitimization of dominance, because they have legitimized their dominance, you know, with
Indeed.
the government. Yeah, they have absolutely. So next week we'll pick up with chapter 10, the candidate selection process. Everybody, let's go down one by one and just tell the people where they can find you.
Okay, well, family, you know, my name is Alima Njai, also known as Lily La Poete. You can find me on Facebook at Alima Njai or Alima La Poete. You can like my page, or you can follow my blog. If you follow my blog, make sure you subscribe to the blog, to the newsletter, to the page. That's www.lililapoete, that's Poete, speaks.com.
All right, next.
Brother Impu, Peru. You can find me on Facebook, or we meet on Wednesdays, empowering us now, Afrocentric study group.
Powerful group, people. Everybody need to be there.
I'm going to be there now. I meant to be there this week, but I'm going to be there. I got it set in my phone.
Same here.
Hey,
Same here.
Don't even try it. Don't even try it. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't have the number out, the conference call number out. I don't have my.
I have it.
Okay, so if you could put that on.
Okay, the number, family, is 515-604-9646, and the call-in code is 69267, and it's at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays.
Brother Travis, did we have a wonderful time this past week?
Powerful. We're not gonna get to the book, Chancellor William. They got so many serious minds up in there. You know, people from different comedic groups, but they got some serious minds up in there. I tell you, you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah. I just one suggestion for Dr. Oya. I wanted, if we could, please, this right here.
Oh, come on! I talked about this book earlier.
What is it?
The Falsification of African Consciousness by Dr. Amos.
Yes,
that's earlier.
Okay, that's all I'm gonna say is okay. All you can say okay, but
We're
yeah,
gonna read it next. We're gonna have to read it next, sis.
Yeah, yes.
I got it in the cut. I got it. I'm ready to rock and roll with him.
I love you all. Peace and Black Power.
Peace, brother.
Peace and power, brother. Brother T. Brother
Hey,
Travis.
Hey, can you repeat that phone number again? I have the code, but I got the first 3 digits of the phone number.
515-604-9646, and the call-in code is 69267.
Thank you. Gotcha. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Brother T, last words for the audience.
Once again, panel, this is fantastic description of comprehensive of this chapter. I definitely appreciate everybody put the input in. I definitely learned a lot, and I can't wait for chapter 10.
Yeah.
Every Saturday, we meet at St. Louis Drive, talking about Nellie Fuller's book, and we also the team's called CCA Care Unit, and what we're doing is basically going over Nellie Fuller's book and also taking some real life activities, so we can go into the community. One thing that we're talking about doing in upcoming days is doing a first aid CPR class and getting everyone in the group, the reading group, CPR certified. The next step is finding a fresh water source in the community, learning how to filtrate the water. The third thing would be learn how to create a solar panel generator.
Wow, that's hot.
And then another thing would be also trying to form a gun club. So some of the things that we try to create in this group to try to combat, as Nellie Fuller says, racism, white supremacy, by just bringing that book and bringing his concepts to life.
Excellent. Excellent. Brother Travis?
Oh, peace, fam. Brother Travis from Detroit. You can reach out to me at Shemsu Netcher, SHEMSU Netcher, NETCHER, my Facebook page. This is a powerful group here. You know what I mean? We got some serious minds here. I'm loving what I'm, the information getting through this book, Blueprint for Black Power. Another book I wanted to talk about, Dr. Maat and the family, is Black Labor, White Wealth, is Dr. Claude Anderson book.
When I got that,
That's another book.
Yes.
There's so many guns out there that we got to get through.
Yes.
I can foresee this. We're getting through a lot of information. Happy to be here, and it's just a great group.
Oh man, happy to have you, Brother Travis. And yes, that's another win in Powernomics. We got to get, like you said, we got some heavy hitters we got to cover.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely do. Well, family, you know who I am. My name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as Dr. Maat, the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions and the co-producer of Ed Anime Productions. The co-producer of Meltrek. Let me play our info video for you. Can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, I didn't share screens. I thought I shared my screen. I was getting ready to play everything for you and nothing. Okay. Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
Now available on DVD, The Extraordinary Educational Hip-Hop Series, created by the youth and for the youth. Meltrek, Episode 1, Exploring Ancient Africa. Join the adventure with Bunchie, Jesse, Jen, and Michelle as they travel back in time to explore the great kingdoms of Africa. Children will learn about the geography of Africa, its rulers, culture, and great structures. They will uncover their greatness by realizing that we all come from.
Hi, my name is Anna Bailey Scribner, an educator in the Baltimore City Public School System for over 35 years, and I am excited about Meltrek, and I do recommend it. Hello, I am Dr. Cynthia Neverdine Morton, a former professor of history at Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland, and I highly recommend Meltrek as an informative, engaging, and innovative way for youngsters to learn about their history.
Hi, my name is Charmaine. I'm an educator with over 15 years of experience, and I recommend Meltrek.
So give your child the greatest gift of all, knowledge. Just visit our online shop at edanimateproductions.com to purchase your copy of Meltrek Episode 1, available on DVD. Also available at our online shop, the Meltrek soundtrack for digital download only. Like us on Facebook Follow us also on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube at Anime Productions to stay connected with us always. So join the adventure as we all recall that we all come from greatness, so we can be anything great.
All right now.
Yeah, and you guys can visit edanimeproductions.com to purchase your products. Beautiful store. I'm trying to get Aaron knows about Africa and their sister Alima, so I got to get up with brother Ben.
Yes.
Yeah, because I want to get brother Ben's book right here in this shop, man. That's a book that I believe should be in every Black child, African child, you know, every African child's collection.
Indeed.
So visit edanimeproductions.com to support the Meltrek movement. Support the Meltrek movement. All right, so that leaves, so we're done, sis.
That's it.
I guess. Yes, that's it. Next week it's on and popping. I'm just wish that everyone have a peaceful and productive week. Peace and power.
Peace, family.